Dianna Russini from The Athletic on the Myles Garrett trade request situation. This is from The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
They do not want to move him. Look, I was told that this thing could get messy, right? And the reason why it can get messy, because you got two sides on very opposite sides of what they want to do. I just spoke with an NFL agent, a high-powered one, and he said to me, while I was walking over here, he said, this is about guaranteed money, right? This is all contract. This is just a play for Myles to get more money. I said, absolutely not. This is the one case where the player truly wants to go to a team where he can go win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So at some point here, both sides, they're going to have to come to a decision, because Myles Garrett is not going to step on that field unless he's going to get shipped out of Cleveland. So I don't know how this thing ends. I can just tell you that teams around the league are calling, they're trying, they're discussing, and they want to get their business in order before the start of the new league year in March.
Yes.
So they can make decisions on how they're going to spend their money in
right.
free agency, how they're going to draft. So I think this thing is going to actually pick up over the next few weeks, as we know that teams are going to want some answers here.
Let's welcome in Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Ashley, everybody wants an answer, and the answer is it can't happen until after June 1st because it costs them $36 million.
Exactly. I mean, it would be cost prohibitive given the Browns' current cap space, their current cap situation. Now, we know this regime is really good at working with that, right? You have to be with the Deshaun Watson contract as well. But yeah, that to me adds another layer to everything. And it's this idea of, if the Browns would change course and say, oh, well, we are going to see what we can get for Myles Garrett. Well, in theory, then, if you trade him after June 1st, if that becomes the avenue you pursue, you won't get any draft compensation for him for this year. And I almost think that gives other teams a chance to shortchange their end of the deal a little bit in terms of what they're going to offer. And then it becomes well, is this worth it for us? And it's an interesting conundrum to be in at this point. And, again, we haven't seen Myles Garrett out and about really since his Radio Row tour at the Super Bowl. But what no one really that I saw seemed to ask him in those interviews is, well, is there a number that would change your mind? What might that look like? What might be enticing enough to stay here? Because I always bring up the example of, there was another guy who didn't want to come to Cleveland until the right number got put in front of him. And suddenly, when $230 million fully guaranteed was on the table, Deshaun Watson changed course after the Browns had initially been told they were out of the running, right? And obviously that hasn't worked out. But it is the perfect example of, hey, sometimes a guy can be done with a team, want to go somewhere, have his heart set on somewhere. But at the end of the day, I do still think there is a chance that everyone has a price too. So the money aspects of this continue to be the most interesting for me on both sides. And it also is why I don't think there's going to be a quick, neat, and tidy solution to any of this.
No, and Andrew Berry has said they're probably going to make him an offer that would make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. That's going to be a lot of money. I don't know what the exact figure is, but it's gonna add up quickly.
It would be a lot of money. And what the Browns have that some other teams don't have, because you look at the wants of these two sides, and they are at opposite ends of the spectrum, because Myles Garrett says he wants to play for a contender, right? Well, if the Browns trade him to one, the draft compensation won't be as good. We know that already. But the other element of that is, would those contenders even be able to pay him, right? For example, if you're the Detroit Lions, you got to worry about all the young guys that you hit on in the draft recently, most notably your star edge rusher currently in Aiden Hutchinson. They're going to have to figure out how to pay him coming up here really quickly. The Browns, if they give him an extension, they would have the space then to space his money out more throughout their cap. Like, that's why it would be such a big deal for them to get that done, because we obviously know their cap situation is what it is. But to bring him back on another extension, you give yourself that leeway. So it's like the Browns can do it, but could some of these other teams that, hey, wouldn't have as good compensation anyway, could they afford to pursue a deal with him? And I don't know in some of their cases.